On December 14, 1863, one of the biggest battles of eastern Tennessee took place. Bean's Station was an important position as it sat on the crossroads of the Holston River in Grainger County, Tennessee. Bean's Station was not a railroad depot for the East Tennessee and Virginia Railroad. It was so named because it was a convenient place for travelers to rest along the Cumberland Gap Road and the Great Warpath of the Cherokees. We will cover the events that led up to the battle and how two generals' decisions would play a role in who won and who lost the battle. And really, can it be called a victory? And was the main goal of the battle accomplished? Find out the answers to these questions and more as we discover the battle for Bean's Station. All aboard the Kentucky-Tennessee Living Time Machine. Please fasten your seatbelts and keep your arms and legs inside of the vehicle at all times. But to get going, we need your help. We still need to fire up the time machine to transport us. Please help us by clicking on the like, subscribe, and bell notification buttons down below. Not only does this fire up the time machine, but it convinces YouTube that we need a bigger time machine to reach more people who love history as much as you do. Now, back to our story. Longstreet's Knoxville retreat. A month earlier, Longstreet had begun the siege of Knoxville, Tennessee, on November 19, 1863. The two generals involved was Longstreet and Major General Ambrose Burnside. The fighting continued until December 4, 1863, when Major General William T. Sherman relieved Burnside with a larger army. Seeing that the fight was now hopeless, the Confederate Army weighed its options. Longstreet held a war council to determine if they should retreat eastward towards Rogersville, Tennessee, or rejoin Bragg's army as they were en route to Dalton, Georgia. Because the track through the mountains was deemed too difficult, the rejoining of the troops with Bragg was rejected. At the suggestion of Major General Lafayette McLaws, it was felt that a push towards Rogersville was the better option, as it was felt that a retreat into eastern Tennessee would garner support among the Confederate-leaning citizens of the area. Along the way, Longstreet met up with Confederate troops under the command of Major General Robert Ransom, Jr. at Blaine's Crossroads on December 5, 1863. There, the two combined forces stayed until December 8th. Also, on December 5th, Major General Burnside ordered the infantry under the command of Parke to pursue Longstreet's troops as they retreated eastward before they could get any more support. Major General John Parke in pursuit. On December 7, 1863, Parke's Union troops left Knoxville in pursuit of Longstreet and his troops. Each man left his knapsack, but carried 60 pounds of ammunition, a shelter tent, and very few provisions. The troops left a lot of artillery behind them because there were not enough horses to pull it. Longstreet withdrew his army from Blaine's Crossing on December 8th and headed to East Tennessee. He followed the route of East Tennessee and Virginia Railroad to Rogersville. Longstreet had his troops to strip the countryside of food during their retreat, as they were also poorly provisioned. This forced Parke to end his pursuit of the Confederate Army at Rutledge, Tennessee, because his men did not have provisions to continue any further. Longstreet paused his troops once again on December 9th at Rogersville and stayed there until the 14th. This action disappointed many of the troops as they wanted to push onward into Virginia. Brigadier General Bruce Shaw Johnson would report that a lot of men were deserting the Tennessee Brigade due to starvation and lack of needed supplies. U.S. Brigadier General J.M. Shacklefield's situation. After the siege of Knoxville, General Shackleford's brigade was also sent in pursuit of Longstreet and his troops. He had caught up to the Confederate forces and set up camp in the Bean's Station area. Like his counterpart, General Parke, Shackleford was ill-prepared for a full battle with very little supplies. Captured scouting party. While Longstreet was setting up camp at Rogersville, intelligence came to him that Sherman's troops had left the area. Seeing that Shackleford's troops were isolated, he attempted to block their escape route through Bean's Station. On December 13th, Longstreet sent Giltner's cavalry and General Benjamin G. Humphreys' infantry brigade towards Bend Station in the heavy rain. There, the two generals spotted the camp of Shackleford's cavalry. Several men were captured and questioned about the strength, location, and movements of Longstreet. Through this information, Shackleford surmised that attack would soon be underway. The Union forces then began to take action against the oncoming attack. Shackleford then sent a message to Parke telling him that the Confederates was, quote, in our front, unquote. He then sent out the 1st Kentucky Cavalry Regiment to set up the pickets on Morristown and Rogersville roads, and then fortify the areas to make it harder for the troops to reach the camp by surprise. Several Union generals came to the aid of Shackleford early on December 14th. According to the Wikipedia page, quote, Parke and Brigadier General Robert Brown Potter, commander of the 9th Corps, visited Shackleford at Bend Station. Burnside's chief engineer, Captain Orlando Metcalf Poe, was also there to find positions near Bend Station to fortify, unquote. The Battle of Bend Station. That morning, the Confederate troops left Rogersville and headed to Bend Station to attack the Union forces there. It had been raining heavily for a day and a half. In preparation, Longstreet had his troops to prepare meals for 3 days as provisions during that time. The rain had begun to slow down on the 14th, so Longstreet saw an opening for an attack on Sheckleford's troops. The Confederate troops moved in on the Federal forces with a combined attack using artillery, infantry, and cavalry. Longstreet's plan was to split his troops to prevent any escape of the Union troops to ensure a victory. Longstreet had given orders for Brigadier General William T. Martin to take 2 cavalry divisions and go along the south bank of the Holston River, cross the river behind the Union troops, and block the valley. Orders were then given to Brigadier General William E. Grumble Jones to move his troops along the north side of the Clinch Mountain to prevent any escape. Longstreet then ordered Henry L. Giltner's cavalry brigade and Johnson's 2 infantry brigades to attack from the front. U.S. Brigadier General J. M. Shecklefield and Lieutenant General James Longstreet would meet on the battlefield. Shecklefield commanded 4,000 cavalry and infantry and was located at Bend Station to rest as they were in full chase to catch up to Longstreet. He was in commander of the Union Army of the Ohio Cavalry Corps. Longstreet was in command of the Longstreet's 1st Corps and cavalry. The two sides would clash around 2 p.m. that day. After battling throughout the afternoon, the Union troops stood their ground. Because of this, the two sides of Longstreet's army failed to close upon their quarry. Longstreet himself took to the battlefield, but he failed to encircle and capture the Union troops. The Union troops had retreated that evening as night fell to Blaine's Crossroads. When the Union troops reached their destination, they joined up Parke's main Union field force. However, because the Union troops had escaped during the night, they had left behind some provisions. They found enough bacon to feed the Confederates for a day. Also, there were saddles and other cavalry equipment left behind. Even though the battle was technically sound and used several times in battles throughout history, in this case, it did not work. The Confederates did win the day. However, they did not achieve the goal of the capture of the Union Army and the majority of their equipment. At the end of the day, both sides would take on heavy casualties. Shackleford's side would lose 700 soldiers, and Longstreet's side would lose 900 soldiers. Longstreet said of the battle, quote, "This was the second time during the campaign. The first was at Campbell's Station, when the enemy was completely in our power, and we allowed him to escape us," unquote. Longstreet would move his troops to Russellville, where the Nenny home would become his headquarters, and the troops would set up winter hut camp along the railroad and the area between the Holston River and the Nolechucky rivers. There, the Confederate Army would stay during the winter months, protecting the line that stretched from Rutledge to Dandridge. Thank you. We at Kentucky Tennessee Living would like to thank you for watching our video series on the Appalachian Civil War battles. Don't forget to hit that like button, as the more likes we receive, the more likely YouTube is to suggest our videos to other viewers. Also, to receive notice when we upload a new video, be sure to subscribe and click the bell notification. We thank you for continuing to support Kentucky Tennessee Living as we are discovering the mysteries in Appalachian history.